Welcome to Dodgers Prospects. I'm Casey Porter of Dodgers Daily, joined as I am each and every week by Tim Rogers of Dodgers 2080. So, Tim, so excited about this show. We took a week off for Christmas. We did not take a week off for New Year's. So here we are. Here we're back. Here we are back, and we're going to talk about some of the roles of some of the rookies this year.
Yeah, very excited to be back and to get the new year started correctly. Why not start recording on January 1st? Let's just hit the ground running.
Absolutely. Very excited to watch this show continue to grow. We want to first of all thank all of the people who have tuned in and viewed, left all the wonderful comments we've had. Tim and I are just so excited with the way that this show is growing. It just has an unlimited amount of potential, especially when it's interactive and the fans let us know kind of where they want the show to go and guide us in that direction. Yep. So thank you so much to everybody for tuning in and being interactive with us. This is awesome. We love the prospects, and this is a wonderful time of year to talk about them. So, hey, let's talk about today the roles of Miguel Vargas, Michael Busch, and James Outman. I'm going to leave it blanket right there because I know you have some ideas as far as which way you want to go. So go ahead and dive into that topic right there, Tim.
Yeah, I know that a lot of the projections right now don't have Busch in the lineup, and I think that's a mistake in some way and somehow. I know that with JD Martinez taking over the DH role, that does put a block on him a bit. But the question is, can we find a defensive spot for him? A lot of people have Chris Taylor projected to start and play every day, and I think that's a mistake in terms of I don't like locking Chris Taylor into one position to say left field or second base or something. So Chris Taylor should be the utility guy, starting probably 4 to 5 times a week, but at different positions, which to me leaves spots open. We know that we've got Max Muncy's going to play either second or third. And then we have, Michael Busch that's been playing a lot of second base. And, I had just a little 1-minute rant about him yesterday, the day before, in which, why not give that guy some runway during spring training to learn left field? If they don't like him, and this is if they don't like him at second base, and we hear that people don't like him at second base, but do we really know what?
I do. I've seen him quite a bit, but continue on.
Yeah, but I mean, it's the prospect gurus out there and all that. But do we know what Andrew Friedman thinks? Do we know what Brandon Gomes thinks? Do we know what Dave Roberts thinks? We don't know those things. And so, but if they don't want to play him at second base, give him some runway in spring training, put him in left field, give him a lot of opportunities to work there. Even if it doesn't totally work out, he gets some experience and gets some versatility. And you could send him to AAA to begin the season if needed to get his defense down. I'm not worried about his offense. And just get working. You've talked about him extensively, and he is a good athlete. And so, let's leverage that as much as possible. But at the end of the day, I still think that his bat needs to be in this lineup sometime in 2023. Yeah. Now, I know we've talked about Michael a bit. Can you kind of give a little refresher, Casey, on what you've seen of him, second base and athletically?
Yeah, of course, he was an all-state shortstop growing up. He was a hockey player. He was an all-state quarterback. So that tells you, number one, he was the most athletic kid in his high school. Yeah. And two, he's a big-time leader. To be a quarterback and then to also be an all-state shortstop, that takes leadership skills, it takes athletic ability. And then he also was a hockey player, okay? Yeah. And then also, I talked to Tom Holliday, who was the head coach at Oklahoma State University and also was the assistant under Gary Ward that built that massive program at OSU that went to the College World Series 7 times in a row in the 80s, had Pete Incaviglia and Robin Ventura and Jeremy Burnitz and all those guys. Okay, talked to Tom Holliday. He said he's one of the toughest players that he has ever played for. I've talked to Randy Whistler, who's one of the better infield coaches you'll ever find, about Michael Busch, and both of those guys will tell you that, hey, he'll get the job done. I mean, that's what they'll say about Michael Busch is, it's not always going to look pretty. There's going to be times to where he takes a routine play and all of a sudden he's down on both knees. He's throwing from both knees, but yet you get an out, and then there's going to be some times to where he does look a little fancier. I've got some plays with him moving to his right, going to the hole to his left. I'll tell you this about Michael Busch, and I consider him, what I call a dirt worm, if you will. He's a guy like that will just get down and gritty and do whatever it takes to make the play. And I can tell you, guys will rally around Michael Busch. He is an elite leader. He has elite leadership skills. He is awesome in the clubhouse. He will be the hardest worker on the team, at least tie for that if Dodgers have a lot of guys like that. Yeah. And his defense, all it has to be, Tim, you mentioned it a minute ago, is adequate at second base because the bat is going to be way above adequate. So for him to be a very, very, very good Major League Baseball player, similar to Miguel Vargas, all he has to do is make the routine plays. We wouldn't be asking him to go out there and have Trey Turner type range and that kind of thing. We'd be asking him to make a box maybe 2 to 3 steps to his left and right. And if it's in that box, make the play, and he is totally capable of doing that. So, those are my thoughts on him at second base.
Yeah. Some of it comes to Max Muncy, right? We've heard, this will kind of bleed over into Miguel Vargas a little bit, obviously, but Max Muncy played a competent third base last year. He was kind of middle of the pack in terms of all the advanced stats. But he prefers second base. I do remember him saying that. Well, he
was a first baseman, so he's used to that side of the infield. Yeah.
Yeah. And first base looks kind of locked up. So, if they want to go with, if they decide to go Vargas at third and Muncy at second, then left field, because I see left field as the biggest, there is a spot in this lineup, and I see that as being a spot to use. Well, and we'll cover that too.
I think right now, if they had to put out a lineup tomorrow for Game 7 in the World Series, I think Vargas would be at third, Muncy would be at second. I think Trace Thompson would be in left field, and James Outman would be in center. Chris Taylor would be your fourth outfielder and your fifth infielder. I think that's where they'd go right now at this point. Would you agree with that?
I think probably in the playoffs, Dave Roberts would go, I got to lean on my guy and go with Taylor in center. I just and I like Chris Taylor. He got, he had a terrible year last year. He was injured the whole season. I hope he's healthy because he's such an important guy on that
Clutch.
Team. Yeah, he's important, and he'll be better. So that's good. I know a lot of us are kind of remembering Chris Taylor of 2022, which was pretty striking out more than ever and just being unhealthy. That's what happens when you're unhealthy, though, right? I mean, you got to be closer to 100% than I think he was more like 70%, it seemed like.
Yeah. Yeah, and he's always a guy that's going to swing and miss quite a bit because he has that lift in his swing. That's what people are worried about with James Outman is, I talked to James, and when he came out of Sac State, he said, I kind of swung like a caveman, is how he put it. Just kind of swing as hard as you can and see what you got. And he said almost within 30 minutes of signing with the Dodgers, he was on the phone with all the hitting instructors in the organization, and they were wanting to get to work with him. And he was like, hey, right now, let's go. So he's made a ton of swing adjustments to eliminate lift in his swing, to flatten the swing out. And, what he's tried to do is he's tried to, we know that the massive potential, the power, the powers, he had 2 grand slams this year. He hit, 31 home runs. Yeah. And he had 106 RBIs. So we know the power potential is massive, but I talked to him about in July, right before he got moved up to AAA, got to talk to him for about 10 minutes. And the thing that stuck out about me about his comments were, hey, becoming a bigger time prospect isn't necessarily about your potential. They all know about that. It's about reducing the downtime you have. Instead of going 0 for 32 with 16 strikeouts, let's reduce that to like 4 for 20 with 10 walks, that kind of thing,
right?
And less strikeouts. So he has really worked hard to flatten the swing, to eliminate some of the lift. You don't want to eliminate all of it because fly balls do go out of the yard. But and his strikeout rate was down to 25% last year, which is the lowest in his career since his first year in 2018. So I think if you can get James Outman around 25% strikeout rate, which is high, but I think if you can get him there, you can have maybe a 20-20 guy. And I can tell you right now, he's one of the best athletes in the system. I don't care what anybody says. And he is a fantastic, fantastic, fantastic defensive outfielder.
Yeah, I mean, I think James, if you look at him, he played. I actually shorted him. He had 32 home runs because he had one in the major leagues.
Oh yeah,
memorable.
Yeah, memorable.
That was quite amazing. And the guy's going to play defense in the major leagues. That's for sure. And I couldn't agree more about the athletic ability. We've seen it. I mean, just the athleticism he shows in the outfield, the running of the bases, and all that. And I hope they give him a chance. You hear the rumors and you go, rumors, and they're just rumors. A lot of it's just clickbait, but it still gets into the psyche of everybody that the Dodgers don't trust Outman. They're going to go with Taylor. They're going to go with Trace Thompson, whatever. But the fact that he has improved so much. I know batting average isn't the cool thing, but 295 and 292, Tulsa and Oklahoma City. Yeah. That's a big jump. So overall he was 294. That's a big jump up for him. And that's shows the progress. The guy obviously buys into all the good stuff and buys into the improvement and always getting better. And he could have come in just because I got drafted and all that. No, he was a humble guy, and I told Dustin Kelly was one of the coaches back then, and just couldn't say more good things about James Outman when I inadvertently just started talking about him at Rancho in 2019. Yeah. So James, I hope I still haven't talked about Vargas, but James got to get a shot. I think he's on the roster. I can't see him not being on the roster. And I think with the Dodgers, they go, well, the Corey Seagers and the Cody Bellingers, we're going to play them just about every day. But the guys we're not so sure about, we're going to slow roll them a bit. We're going to platoon them, which I think is a terrible thing. If you want to, if you want to learn how to hit left-handed hitting as a left-handed batter, I think you got to face left-handed hitting.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I do, no doubt. I do see them. I have a bad feeling they're going to platoon him. I mean, Trace Thompson had a really nice year last year, and he deserves some playing time. And the Dodgers do find a good way of doing that. Again, with JD Martinez locked in as DH, they're not going to have near as many opportunities. I think the only guy that will also get DH time will be Will Smith when Austin Barnes catches, and they'll have to make a decision between Will and JD.
Yeah, the thing that I worry about, and if you look at, let's take Corey Seager, you mentioned him, and Julio Urias and Will Smith, and think of all of the rookies that the Dodgers have had come up and had a lot of success. Guess what they were given when they came up, Tim? You mentioned the word just a minute ago. They were
opportunities,
given
runways, all that good stuff.
Yeah, they were not taken back down. If you look at all of the guys that have had success that built that 2020 World Championship Series, once they made it to L.A., they stayed in L.A. They didn't have to do what Ryan Pepio and Mitchell White and those guys have had to do in the last 2 years, where they go up and down and up. Michael Grove's one of them. So when you hear people talk, well, Pepio couldn't throw a strike here or there. Well, my good, you got to realize how difficult the position now. Don't get me wrong; he's very thankful, I'm sure, and he wouldn't trade any of it for the world.
Yeah, his bank account's more thankful, that's for sure.
Yeah, don't get me wrong, but having said that, he and Mitch White weren't given the same chances that Will Smith, Julio Urias, and help me out here with some of the other guys, Corey Seager,
Cody Bellinger.
Cody Bellinger. Those guys were,
Jock Peterson.
Yep, exactly. Those, help me out there. All of those guys were brought up and left. So you mentioned the word runway a minute ago. With James Outman, he's a guy, Michael Busch, Miguel Vargas. Gavin Lux is the perfect example. He got brought up and left, but then he was moved around, didn't get. Yeah. He's a perfect example of what you can do to even a very talented rookie and a young guy if you start not playing them every day. Right. Giving them spotty playing time, moving them around to positions they're not used to playing. All of a sudden, you see a guy, instead of just playing comfortably, which baseball players need, they're playing pressing. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely.
So it's very important that the Dodgers don't put Outman, Vargas, and Busch in a situation to where they're pressing.
Yeah, and I look at it, the Dodgers last season, where I think the thing that makes me more upset about, other than the playoffs, they had that division clinched in June, basically.
Outman.
And they could have played these guys more. They could have, left Pepio in. What was the purpose of jumping him back and forth? There was no purpose. They could have just said, hey, 15 starts, we're going to go with Pepio. Why couldn't they have played Miguel Vargas more in September? Instead, no, let's play all the injured guys. And so those injured guys I guess, since Miguel hardly played during September, he didn't play in October, when he really could have. I think he could have been a difference maker if they would have at least given him a chance in September. They never gave the guy a chance. Yeah. 40 at-bats spread out over a month was nothing. That. What is that? That'd be 240 at-bats for a season. That's not a chance. Mm-hmm. Instead, they kept rolling out the same guys that were hurt and bringing him back too early. Even Gavin Lux, was injured. He had a neck injury. Right. Try hitting with a neck injury. Come on, really? Yeah. But they got to go. They got to go with their guys, and I think there's a mentality that they've kind of lost in the organization right now to go, hey, let's trust. Let's just go with these guys. Maybe this is happening. Let's hope so. I know us as content creators, we really hope that they get a lot of playing time. I think I'll be getting.
I believe in them. That's why I hope they get playing time. First of all, so I'm sure you do too. Yeah,
absolutely. And how much talent gets wasted by not giving opportunities, and I don't want to see that happen with this team.
And I always hear, well, look at like the Jeter Downs situation to where he just got DFA'd, and then I saw where Gerardo Carrillo, I believe he got DFA'd as well. They were part of the two big parts of the trades with the Nationals that brought Trey Turner and Max Scherzer. So you hear about that, and I just want to tell people, well, name me the prospects that the Dodgers kept. They evaluated and realized, came to the conclusion these, Willie Calhoun's another one that they traded away that has not really made an impact at the major league level. So name me a prospect recently that the Dodgers have decided to keep that didn't work out, right? I mean, Walker Buehler's another one.
Yeah.
The ones they had questions on, guess what they've done?
Yeah. They've
moved them elsewhere, right?
Yeah.
But
yeah. Well, the other thing, I'm going to just real quick on Carrillo and Downs. The Dodgers player development is so good.
Yeah.
And then they go to these other organizations that aren't as good, and they lose it. Things don't happen as well anymore. They get off the track. Man, I wanted the Dodgers to get those guys back.
Yeah.
Probably go right back into player development, put them right back on that fast track.
Yep. There's another guy that you can add to the equation here that would, add to the logjam, and that would be Jacob Amaya as well. We're assuming that puts Gavin Lux at shortstop. So let me put a wrinkle into that. If Jacob Amaya becomes the shortstop, now Gavin Lux becomes the second baseman. Now what with Michael Busch? What with Miguel Vargas, right?
Yeah.
I think that eliminates both Vargas and Busch.
Yeah. Well, it for me, it goes in, well, obviously it puts Muncy at third, and then Busch and Vargas battled out for left field in my opinion.
See, I think Trace Thompson's your left fielder. I just don't see where Trace Thompson is so good defensively, and if he can give you just anywhere around the 250 mark with, say, 10 to 15 home runs, I think he is going to be so much better defensively than either Busch or Vargas in left. If he can give you similar offense, I think you're robbing Peter a lot to pay Paul by putting Busch or Vargas in left. So I mean, it's there's a logjam there. It's going to be fascinating in spring training to see these battles, isn't it?
It's going to be, and I'm a big Trace Thompson guy. Ran into him at Dodger Stadium quite a few years ago, and he's so kind. However, I still see him as a journeyman. Maybe what he did last year is real. I don't know that. We saw him in the playoffs not do so well. I think left field is a position in which you want to get 25 to 30 home runs out of. I think it's a position where it's turned into an offensive position. Yeah, the defense is important, obviously. And I think Busch and Vargas, with some work, can get there. But yeah, Trace is a really good defensive player. But I see him on a team that's fully formed as a fourth outfielder.
See, here's my problem with that is you already have a fourth outfielder.
Who's that?
Chris Taylor.
Yeah, but he's also the infield guy too. I mean, he's all over the place in my opinion. But yeah, I mean, I would put so Taylor would be a guy that starts more. Thompson is a guy that I'd be bringing in with a lead to play defense and then bat against certain pitchers and stuff. It's just kind of that, how much do we believe in Trace Thompson is kind of the thing where it's at. And I'm like, sometimes I go, yeah, Trace Thompson. Then sometimes I go, oh, Trace Thompson.
Yeah. Well, we know he plays elite defense, correct?
He absolutely does. Yeah.
And so I mean, if you want 25 home runs out of your left fielder, then put him in center and put Outman in left.
Yeah, but if I can keep, I think I would consider Outman as good as Thompson in the outfield. This is just for my test. I mean, there's not enough advanced statistics on James. But I'd like to keep that 25 in center and then get 25 to 30 more in left. I mean, the offense with the Dodgers let them down again in the postseason. And I'd like, some fresh hitters out there, guys that maybe can change some narratives about the Dodgers in the postseason. Yeah, it's disappointing when they go to the playoffs and all of a sudden they forget how to hit, even though they had stopped hitting in mid-September. Yeah, it just seems like they just went into a funk, and yeah.
Need the situational hit better, so they need guys that will make their offense more dynamic. The Padres scored how many runs just by hitting a ground ball and moving a guy over, and then scoring him and getting him in. And the Dodgers did not win a game in that series that they hit more home runs than the Padres, but they did lose a game where they hit more home runs. That I've actually analyzed that series, and that series came down to the fact that the Dodgers could not they did not handle the situational offensive baseball as well as the Padres did.
Right. I mean that hit in the seventh inning that the last Canley's last pitch as a Dodger, I think it was Nola hit it. It was just a dribbler between the first and second base. You put the ball in play, though, things can happen.
Yeah.
Which, hey, Outman, watch out for those strikeouts. But I think, though, that's where Vargas is a guy that can do that. And I think if Busch wants to, and we've talked about extensively about that with Busch, he can do that too. So I see those dynamic hitters. We've got to find a way to get them in the lineup. I think JD Martinez is going to be a guy that's going to help in that way. I know he's not quite a prospect anymore. Yeah. But, to get – and, of course, Freddie Freeman, I think, still sets a great example of what a professional hitter is. And, Gavin Lux, I think we've talked about that too. He has that potential. So if you go, well, if I have just from the offensive, forget defense for a second. If we have a Freeman, Martinez, Lux, Busch, and Vargas, all of a sudden that's some different type of hitters.
Yeah.
And of course, then you got Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman. I mean, and Max Muncy, Mookie Betts, and Will Smith. All of a sudden you go, that's not too bad.
Yeah. And the reason why, in my opinion, Miguel Vargas, between Miguel and Michael, Miguel wins that tie, whether it be at second base or third base. If you move Max Muncy to third base, then you're kind of battling Vargas. And, this is assuming Amaya's not the shortstop, which we're both extremely high on Jacob Amaya. Let's just say they give the shortstop position to Gavin Lux, which that kind of seems like the direction they're heading in the sense that, Gavin is he was that shortstop growing up. I don't have any inside knowledge on that, so take that for what it's worth. But let's say that Gavin Lux is the shortstop. They move Muncy to third. Okay, so you have a battle between Vargas and Busch. I think Vargas wins that tie, and the reason is 76 strikeouts last year, 71 walks for Miguel Vargas.
Yeah.
Michael Busch, 167 strikeouts. So although he did hit, 32 home runs? Is that how many he hit? 32 home runs, which is very good. Miguel Vargas had a higher batting average, and he had more than half the strikeouts of Michael Busch. And I think you hit the nail on the head just a minute ago. The Dodgers are looking for somebody who can create more dynamic of an offense for them. Does that make sense? And Miguel Vargas is certainly that guy, especially when it's not like he can't hit home runs. I mean, Miguel Vargas, let me get here. In 2022, he hit 17 home runs.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I mean, the Miguel Vargas is the guy that creates a more dynamic offense for you. So I think if there comes a tie between those two, I think Vargas gets the first shot. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. Yeah. I have, I first laid eyes on Vargas 2019, and there was a difference just between, and this is when he was 19, playing at Rancho. And this was when Rancho was high A, not low A. And that guy came in and just started hitting. Now the power wasn't there yet because he was 19. He's still growing. There's no man strength there.
Had baby fat on him still. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, and so he'd hit, but you could just see and you've seen it, that stroke where he just takes it opposite. Now they were landing in outfielders' gloves at the warning track, but now those might go out. But just the fact that he can use the whole field, and I think the most important thing for the Dodgers of these prospects is Miguel Vargas getting full-time at-bats. I think it would be criminal to not do that. He has to fall on his face, in my opinion, in spring training to not be a starter.
He was the Double-A Central. It's always been the Texas League. It's the Texas League again, but Double-A Central hitting champion in 2021. He hit over 300 again in 2022. And like I said, 76 strikeouts, 71 walks. That's a pretty dynamic. When you add 17 home runs, that's a pretty dynamic offensive player.
Yeah, and it's a little bit old school in a way to have strikeouts under 100.
Yeah.
Wow.
But, instead of when what he considers power, in my opinion, Tim, is gap-to-gap double power.
Exactly.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Power doesn't have to mean a home run.
Right.
I mean, power can mean any kind of extra base hit. And Miguel Vargas going from right center to left center is as good as I've seen using what I call the big part of the field.
Yeah. Home runs are great, but getting on base and being able to score runs, at the end of the day, you got to score runs, and getting on second base. And, I look at Vargas as one of those guys that potential right now to be in the top 5 of that lineup by the end of the year.
Mm-hmm. See, I think it would be criminal. I'm with you too if James Outman doesn't get 350 to 400 at bats this year and plays. Here's the thing that I'm worried about.
I agree.
Is let's say that on a day-to-day basis, if you start giving Miguel Vargas, Michael Busch, James Outman spotty playing time, we know they are going to press. They're going to press, and that is not going to be a situation that's advantageous for them or the club. Whereas if you take a Max Muncy or maybe even a JD Martinez on a night where where the stats match up and you put all the numbers together and it makes sense, they won't like it, but they at least those types of veterans, they won't press like rookies will. So it's massively important that you define roles, whatever those roles are, for the rookies. Let them get comfortable with it so they're not looking over their shoulder and wondering, okay, am I getting pulled out of here? Am I not going to play tomorrow? Is this so they're not, they continue to work on what I call the process instead of results, because if you start giving them spotty playing time, all they're going to be worried about is results, and when that happens to a baseball player, it is not good.
Yeah, results get you paid, right? I mean, at the end of the day, and it keeps you there. But it's totally it's self-defeating for the Dodgers to not give these guys a chance. Yeah. Because then the excuse, well, we gave them a little bit of a chance. They didn't perform in those small things. You got to just let it go. Give it to them. We know that you can get in with 89 wins into the postseason. Let's take it this season, because I think, and it's pessimistic, for me to go 89 wins for this team. That's not going to happen. I think one or two of these guys is going to get challenged for Rookie of the Year, maybe more, and they're gonna one of them might even make the All-Star team. These guys, especially Vargas, I think it's going to be Vargas. they're going to go out there and they're going to prove something, and they're going to show that they're a real asset. Because before 2017, no one thought that all of a sudden Cody Bellinger is going to go hit 38 or 39 home runs. Now, I don't expect Vargas to do that, but I expect him to go out there and hit 290 to 310. I actually really believe he can do that at the major league level. And I think the strikeouts are an important thing. I know, again, people don't care as much about that. Again, you got to put the ball in play sometimes.
You know, that's a little bit of a misnomer. If you look at the Dodgers the last 2 years, now 3 years ago and beyond, they struck out a lot, but the last 2 years, the Dodgers really haven't struck out nearly as much as people think.
Yeah, I mean, there's certain players, right? That, you know, the Taylors and Muncy had a really tough year, and Bellinger, you know, he had a really rough year. I mean, there's a reason he's not on the Dodgers anymore. But if you go, you know, people like Freddie Freeman and, you know, Mookie strikes out a bit, but still, you know, he's Mookie Betts. He's amazing as it is. And Trey Turner was you know, a guy that would sometimes put the bat on the ball a lot too. It'll be a different team, that's for sure. But imagine if
Justin Turner would hit the ball, yeah.
Yeah, but imagine putting this core out there and letting them play and establish themselves, and all of a sudden, could you have a Garvey, Lopes, Russell, Say, Billy Buckner, Joe Ferguson type thing, where all of a sudden you have a new core? Because this team needs a new core.
Well, yeah, you know, instead of just going back to the old guard, you know, that's I've heard that before. But here's the cool aspect to the mixture of the roster. You know, you have the Freddie Freemans and the Mookie Betts and guys like that are you know, Clayton Kershaw, that are very, very, very veteran. Okay.
Yeah. Then
you have a next level of guys like Will Smith, Gavin Lux, Julio Urias, even Walker Buehler could kind of be considered in that, you know, and then you have the younger guys like Dustin May, Tony Gonsolin, that aren't rookies, but they're younger. And then you have the next level that are going to be rookies. So, you know, this is the first time, in my opinion, that the Dodgers have had a wider variety of the type of player that they have on the roster in terms of experience. And so I think that's going to work out better for them, because it's going to be a good, you know, we've seen the experience, but then sometimes you wonder, you know, is the motivation there on, you know, every single night when, you know, which is great because you're seeing the big picture all the time, but does the big picture motivate you every single day? Does that make sense? Whereas, you know, the younger guys are just looking to survive every second that they're there in the clubhouse. So I think that mixture of having, you know, every aspect of every type of player is going to be great for them.
Yeah, I do too. And, you know, I think they've had that mix before in terms of age, but the quality of player didn't line up. There wasn't like a nice linear line of quality. It was like, oh, well, we have Chase Utley, but he's toast.
Yeah, right.
You know, you can't beat Chase Utley as a player when he was in his prime and his knowledge and mental aspects of the game. He's amazing. But he was toast. That guy he shouldn't have been, after 2016, shouldn't have been back, in my opinion. But, you know, and even Justin Turner this last year in the playoffs, he fell apart. He had a good 3 months, that's for sure. But, you know, but you go now, the veterans, the older guys, they're really good.
Yeah.
They're their stars. They're the guys that got 9-10 years are Mookie and Freddie.
Yeah.
And even Max Muncy, who's, you know, he was a late rookie, but, you know, that guy's right in there too. These guys have all had amazing success, and they're in their prime.
Yeah.
If we had Chase Utley in his prime, it would have been great, but we didn't.
Yeah, I mean, I think your core this year is Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, and then Will Smith, and then probably Gavin Lux. You're going to hope it's Gavin Lux because, you know, he's been that good in the past, and I think he's totally capable of being that guy. And then Austin Barnes, obviously.
Don't forget Max Muncy.
Yeah, Max Muncy, yeah. So I think that's your core right there, okay? And then I think everything orbits around that. You know, you build around that core, and then you figure out how to play Michael Busch, Miguel Vargas, James Outman, the roles of Chris Taylor and Trace Thompson. I think you develop everything around that. And then obviously your core is Clayton Kershaw on the pitching bump, and then Julio Urias. But just from a position player perspective, I think that's your core, and then you orbit everything else around that, and you try to. But here's I think what you and I are saying is that just, hey, whatever orbits you have around that quarter, define it, define it very clearly, so everybody knows exactly what the role is and they can settle in and get comfortable with it, because I think that is just hugely important for young guys trying to pave their way into the major leagues.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you made some really good points 2-3 weeks ago about Lux during our shortstops thing. He just needs that place to settle. And I've still seen articles written by people I really respect going, oh, you can move him back and forth between short and second. No, he's not that guy. That's Chris Taylor. That is not Gavin Lux. He's not a utility guy. He's either a pure shortstop or is he pure second baseman. Don't mess with the guy. You know,
I'm on that bandwagon. And I hope this doesn't come off as criticism towards anybody, because the Dodgers front office and I love the way they put together lineups. You know, I'm all for collaboration and put all your best brains together, put all the data together and come up with the best plan. I think that is advantageous for everybody. So I hope this doesn't come off as critical at all. This comes off as maybe a little bit defensive towards the prospects, right?
It does. And also, hey, there can be some bitterness after only winning one playoff game in 2022. There was a dead dugout on that team.
Which is why we're talking about adding the dynamics, the younger dynamics to it. You know, that's exactly what we've talked about on this show. But hey, we've got about 2 minutes left. Ooh. Again, Tim, unbelievable how fast the show goes, isn't it? I mean, we're talking about 3 guys, and we're like, well, can we stretch this into a full show? Well, we could probably go on 3 to 4 times this long, but easy. Final thoughts.
Yeah, we've said it now a few times today and in previous podcasts. Give these guys a chance to find their roles, and let's see what can happen, because I'm a big believer in these guys. I think they're very exciting, and the fans are going to love them once they get a chance and they prove themselves. So that's all I've got for today.
Totally agree. I think James Outman and Miguel Vargas, I think right now they would probably be everyday players at this point. Michael Busch, I think they're going to have to get creative to figure out a way to get his bat in the lineup. He needs 300 to 400 major league at bats this year, but hey, we're out of time. Tim, thanks again. So for everybody that tuned in, we want to say thank you for that, and go Dodgers.